Okay, the next problem that we'll talk about is E63. E63 gives us some information about Locker Rentals Corp., which operates a locker rental service at various locations. Unlike some of the old mechanical lockers, this company operates electronically and is able to charge based upon hours of usage. The locker system transmits daily messages back to the office indicating the number of hours the lockers have been used. When we look at this description of the control processes and principles that are in place, find some that are good and some that are not so good. The first requirement asks us that for each statement, identify internal control principles that are being applied. I've listed those out for you here, but let's talk and let's point out a few line items as to why these ones are the way that they are. If we look at A, it says 2 employees are responsible for collecting cash. One goes to the west side, one goes to the east side. This is assigning responsibility or establishing responsibility. This clerk's responsible for this side, this clerk's responsible for that side, assigning one person to an area. Okay? Next, it says when each cash collection clerk returns with the cash, a supervisor counts the cash and prepares a cash count sheet. This one will be document the procedures where we prepare the cash count sheet. Okay? We'll talk later on when we get into requirement 2 of why these two are not segregation of duties. Okay? We'll talk about that as we get into requirement number 2. But notice that they prepare a cash count sheet which serves as a documentation, an audit trail, a document that someone can follow. Okay? So they're documenting the procedures, they're documenting what happened. If you look at C, it says the supervisor summarizes the cash count sheets in a pre-numbered daily cash summary. Pre-numbered summary would again be documenting activities, right? The procedures that you follow and documenting those activities in a pre-numbered document, a pre-numbered summary. The next one says the supervisor places the cash in a locked cash box until it's taken to the bank for deposit. This would be restricting access. If the cash is locked up in a locked box, no one else can get to it. They've restricted the access. The next one says the supervisor, not the cash collection clerk, takes the cash to the bank for deposit. In this instance, they're segregating duties, right? Originally, the person who collected the cash is not the same person who actually takes the cash and takes it to the bank. Okay? So they're segregating related duties. Having one person responsible for this, having one person responsible for this, but not related activities. Okay? Next, supervisor prepares a duplicate deposit slip which the bank stamps after the deposit is made to indicate the date and the amount of the deposit. Again, we're documenting the activities and the procedures that have taken place. This serves as a trail for someone else to follow. They can look at the count sheet. They can look at the summary sheet. They can look at the deposit slip. All of those are activities that they can follow because we've documented them. Okay? The next one, G, says the supervisor sends the stamped bank deposit slip and the daily cash summary to the accountant who compares them before preparing a journal entry debiting cash and crediting revenue. This would be independent review or independently verify. In this instance, the accountant, who's been out of the picture up until G, looks at the items that have been documented in B, C, and F and compares them and says, is there any differences? If not, let's go ahead and book. But on requirement number 2, it says after several months, LRC's supervisor is arrested for stealing nearly $10,000 from the company. Identify the control weaknesses that allowed this theft to occur. There's a few on here. The first one that I'll point you out is B. Now some of you might have been thinking, B looks like segregation of duties. If we read it, it says when each cash collection clerk returns the cash, a supervisor counts the cash and prepares a cash count sheet. In this instance, who should be first counting the cash? It should not be the supervisor that takes the money from the cash collections clerk without the cash collection clerk making a record, and then the supervisor, over in secrecy, counts the cash. That allows them to do the process of one for me, one for you. One for me, one for you. Okay? In that instance, if we don't have someone else checking that, right? If the cash collection clerk doesn't make a record or doesn't do it simultaneously, like they both count the cash together, that would be best. It causes two people to agree their amounts, right? If that doesn't happen, you allow this one other person who then has access from here on out. If you notice, the supervisor has access from pretty much from B to F, okay? The accountant comes in the picture in G, but from B to F, the supervisor pretty much does all the duties. So allowing them to count the cash in the first place, that's a huge violation of segregation of duties, okay? The next problem that we see here, or the next big problem that we see here is G. G says that the accountant then verifies that the bank deposit that we documented in F agrees to the daily cash summary in C, right? The problem is that the supervisor prepared C and F. So you're comparing two things that should automatically match because the supervisor did both of them. This comparison is worthless. It's a waste of your time. Don't spend your time doing it. You want to compare something that comes from two different parties. That is a good comparison. A comparison that comes from the same party is not really a comparison at all. Okay? Now, the last part of this problem, we want to ask ourselves, what could have been done? What could the accountant have done as a better comparison in order to actually catch the fraud that was occurring? Well, again, if we go up to that top paragraph and we read about this company, we find out that this company is unique because they operate lockers electronically and are able to charge based upon hours of usage. The locker system transmits a daily message to the office indicating the number of hours that the locker have been used and which office manager uses to determine when the cash should be picked up at each location. Simply, all the accountant needs to do is get the hours of usage report. If they have this report, they can say, oh, and let's say the company charges $1 per hour or something like that. I don't know, whatever they have, it doesn't matter. Whatever the rate is, you could take the rate, let's say it's $1 per hour, and look at the hours of usage. If you go to location A, and it shows that lockers were used for 20 hours, and it's $1 per hour, how much should be deposited from location A? $20. All the accountant has to do then is look at the hours of usage report and compare that back to the cash summary. Then you have a good comparison. This is independent from the supervisor. The supervisor doesn't mess with the usage report. That's done electronically. A comparison of this to the cash summary, that's how you're going to find your fraud. This is E63. If you have any questions, please let me know.